Hi everyone, welcome to the BookMattic channel. I'm Matt Hudson, and the question that I want to answer today is, do reading goals really matter? And if they don't really matter, what really does? So the topics that I'm going to cover over today are the reading goal trap, shifting focus to habits and intentions, building habits and setting your intentions, balancing goals, habits, and intentions. And then, of course, I would love for you to share your insights as the community of this channel. So let's jump into the insights for this video. So first of all, the major problem that I see with setting reading goals is people are focusing on the numbers. The numbers are not the things that truly matter because that's just a metric to show off to other people. Now, I'm not saying that it's a bad thing to read a lot of books because, of course, reading a lot of books helps to enrich your life. But if the thing that you're solely focusing on is reaching a certain amount of number per books for a whole entire year, let's say, for example, 52 books, that's about a book a week. Right? If you're just solely focusing on that number, then what are you actually getting out of what you're reading? Are you getting anything? Are you applying stuff in your life? Or are you just solely focusing on that number and saying, hey, I read this many books. This is like, oh, such an outstanding achievement, right? So the focus on numbers can actually stress you out as well. So like, for example, right now, I'm sitting at like 49 books that I've read so far in 2023. And I'm very, very happy with that amount of number, even though it's not the most that I've ever read in a whole entire year. But I'm happy with that number because I look back on the actual books that I read. I can take a look at every single one of those books and be like, this is the insight that I gained from this book. This is the insight that I've applied in my life. This is the insight that I can reflect on and continuously improve on over a lifetime, right? This is the value that you're looking for in the book rather than I completed this number of books. I completed 100 books in a year. I don't care if you completed 100 books in a year, and you shouldn't either. The most important aspect is that quality that you're getting from that book and what are the lessons that you can actually apply in your life. Another downfall about setting these numbers or these goals is that you feel like you might have to rush through books sometimes just so that you can get on to the next book to complete your reading goal. And this is not really the most effective way of reading. If you're reading a really good book, you should take your time with it and not have to feel like you have to rush through it just so that you can get to the next book. You learn better if you take the time to reflect on the book and to apply the lessons from the book rather than rushing through it. And also, if you're rushing through the books to get to the next book, it also could cause a problem with like actually choosing the right books because you're in a rush to maybe you want to read a shorter book. Nothing wrong with shorter books. Sometimes the most impactful books are the shorter ones. But what I'm trying to say is you're not selecting books solely based on the needs that you want. Maybe you're choosing a book just because it's short, or choosing a book because everyone else is reading it. You might just be choosing the book for the very wrong reason, right? And then I'm not saying that there's a right reason. I'm just saying that the books that you choose should have a lot of value and purpose in your life, whether that's for pure enjoyment, whether it's a fiction book, or for pure study and application in your life, like a non-fiction book or a business book. So be careful of your choice. Choose wisely and don't just try to rush through book to book to book to book to get to the next book to complete your reading goal, which is just a number. And lastly, for the downsides, I feel like rushing to get through a certain number of books in the whole entire year takes away the joy of reading, to really savor that book and to also dig deeper into the topic. So if I read a book on the laws of human nature and I get a lot of resources from that book, I might want to dive deeper into that topic by dipping into those resources. So I'm following the breadcrumbs and following the trail and diving deeply into my own interests, right? You can do the same thing by following the breadcrumbs in the very good book that you read and diving deeper and deeper into the whole of learning, rather than rushing through and say, oh, I got to get to this book, to the next book, to the next book, to the next book, right? So savor that and enjoy the curiosity of reading rather than rushing through from book to book. Do it for yourself rather than the vanity number, saying, I read 100 books in 1 year. Woo! Whoop-de-doo! How much of that did you apply in your life? If you could apply a lot from 100 books, great. Rather than focusing on the number of books that you read, you should focus on the habits and the intention of your reading. Let's delve into this. Let's first talk about intention. So focusing on intention, asking yourself why you want to read this book. What is the purpose? That gives you more purpose when you go into reading that book. You're asking yourself, why am I reading this book? And what do I want to get out of this book? I've got a few examples here. So for example, I'm a teacher, so of course I want to learn about education and learning and child development. So I'll read The Learning Game. And then I will also read Hidden Genius, because it talks about what it means to be a genius and how you can be a genius, right? The Hidden Habits of Genius is another one. This is a really good one because you can learn the habits of successful people. And then Outsmart Your Brain teaches you about learning skills and note-picking skills and how to organize. And then Why Students Don't Like School is another one. So I read several of those books, and all of these books have to deal with my profession, and also I'm a parent, so of course it helps out with that a lot. So reading books that directly apply to your life is much, much better than trying to just rush through a bunch of books. And if you're reading those purposefully, the books that you choose that deal with your life specifically, then that's going to be much more beneficial for you than rushing through a bunch of books. So ask yourself why. Be intentional about every single book that you read, and try to balance that with
application and reflection.
So now that you're very clear on the purpose for reading, setting your intention, let's talk a little bit about the habits. So usually for me, I pick a designated time and place to read, and I usually try to stick with that habit. If it varies a little bit from day to day, no problem. But yeah, usually after my students have gone home, I will try to read a bit, like maybe 15 to 30 minutes in the classroom or in the teacher room, and I'll be intentional about what I am reading. Of course, it will be usually a non-fiction book, not a fiction book. That way I can focus on setting those expectations right when I get into reading the book and taking proper notes while reading the book, and then reflect on those notes. And then of course, later on in the day when I get home, maybe around 7 or 8 p.m., I'll sit down with a good nonfiction book and I'll read for another 15 or 30 minutes, setting the expectations. What do I want to learn from this particular session of reading? And then of course, taking copious notes with reflections and thoughts. And then I also will read while I'm driving, not a physical book. I'll listen to an audiobook, and I can also take notes through like a voice note while I'm doing that. So that takes effective use of my driving time.
Because I can't really do anything else while I'm driving.
But I can listen to a good audiobook and I can take notes along the way. So when you pick your time for reading, make sure that you pick a time that you're able to completely focus on what you're reading, and ask yourself, how will you apply this in your life? What is the purpose of it, of course, and how will you maybe potentially apply whatever you're learning about in your life? So make it very purposeful and intentional. Also, with your habits, try to be very consistent. So every day you're going to pick up a book for maybe 15-30 minutes a couple times a day. So that means you're reading like an hour, 45 minutes to 1 hour per day, which is a great amount of time. You can get a lot done, a lot of learning, and a lot of reflection done in that hour per day. Now that you've set your intentions and created a habit of reading, you need to also make sure you know exactly what you want to achieve and balance that reading and learning and reflecting with doing, because all that knowledge without any sort of action is going to be fairly useless to you. So think about all the people that read a lot and all the people that have become very successful because of the knowledge they've gained and applied in their life. Some examples of very well-known people are Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, and Elon Musk. You probably heard these names several times before about their reading habits. And then let's talk about some women as well. Oprah Winfrey, she has her own book club. Sheryl Sandberg and Malala Yousafzai. All of them are avid readers, advocates, innovators. And then we've also got some people that are a little bit less known that are very good at reading and applying their knowledge, such as Tara Westover. You may know her from her book Educated. So she grew up in a rural area, a very religious family that didn't have any books at their house. They were cut off from everyone else. And she decided to go to university. She decided to read all of these books and apply all that knowledge. And then we've got another example, Trevor McKendrick. He's an app creator, tech. He reads a lot about that stuff, and then of course made his own app. And then we've got Marie Forleo. She's like a life coach, and she has her own podcast. And of course she reads a lot and applies all of this knowledge in her field. My point of mentioning all these people is the fact that application is key. You must make time for doing something with the doing something proactive with the knowledge that you've intentionally gained from the books you've intentionally picked. That way you can do something with that knowledge. So what are your thoughts on reading goals, in habits, and intentions? What were your reading insights and goals and intentions for 2023? And maybe what are they for 2024? What do you want to achieve? I would love it for you to share your stories and your insights in the comments below. That way we can create a valuable discussion for all the BookMattic lifelong learners out there in this community on YouTube. So share your insights below. And just to kind of recap everything for you today, so don't focus on the numbers. The numbers are just arbitrary. The most important thing is that you focus on your intentions and your habits and what are you going to do with that knowledge? How are you going to apply that knowledge? When you pick up a book, ask yourself, what do I want to get from this book? Is this a book that I should read right now, or should I save it for another time in my life? Or should I ever read it at all? And focus on your growth and your happiness. Your growth and your happiness are the most important things, rather than trying to rush through everything. That way you can say, I read 100 books during the year. That doesn't make any sense. So apply this knowledge, set your goals in an appropriate way. That way you can have your intentions, your goals, and your habits are all aligned. So thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, share, and I'll see you in the next video.